Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to learn how to graph a line using the slope-intercept form of a line that we learned about the other day. So the title in your table of contents should be y equals mx plus b, and today's date, and we should be putting this on page 5758 when we do get finished filling it out. So the top of your handout looks like this, and there's some basic information that we need to review about slope-intercept form. The slope-intercept form of a linear equation tells us the slope, and it tells you the y-intercept of the line. We remember that in an equation, m represents the slope, and when we use this technique to graph, slope is going to tell us how to move between the points. Remember, slope means we are rising and then we are running. The letter B represents the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where you're going to begin our graph on the y-axis. So to graph a linear equation in slope-intercept form, you begin with B and you move with M. This is helpful for our brains to remember what each letter actually means. B for begin on the y-axis, M for move using our rise over run. So please color code your formula like we did with our notes the other day. M is your slope, B is your y-intercept, and you will find these values in your slope-intercept form equations that we're practicing today. Now, since the top part of our handout is fully filled out, we're going to work through some of the examples together. For example 1, we're going to graph using the slope-intercept form and what we know directly from the formula. We know that we are given y equals 1/2 x. Okay, this 1/2 is in the same location that the m is in our original formula. What that means is this is our slope. The other part of the formula is given to us as a minus sign 1. This minus sign 1 is in the same location that your b value or your y-intercept is in. So what it means is we have a y-intercept at -1 and we have a slope of 1/2. So using our definitions, we're going to begin to graph our line on the y-axis, because remember, B stands for y-intercept. Here's your y-axis, here's your x-axis. So we need to go to -1 on our y-axis. From there, we're going to move with our slope. Remember, slope stands for rise over run. So if we were to write that down to remind ourselves, if our rise is a +1 and our run is a +2, you're going to start from this location and you're going to rise up 1 and you're going to run over 2 to find your next point on the line. Rise up 1, run over 2. You're eventually going to run out of room on the grid, so what you can do is reverse your pattern. You can go down 1 and you can go to the left 2 to get a couple more points. With your straight edge, you're going to connect your dots and then you're going to label. Keep in mind when you graph, you have arrows on both ends because a line continues in both directions, and you will always label your equation so we know what it is that you just graphed. So again, begin with B, the y-intercept, move with your slope, which always gives us directions on how to rise and how to run. This technique of graphing is sometimes quicker and easier than using your T-charts that we learned about the other day. Second example has given us y equals -3x plus 2. So remember, this plus 2 at the end of our formula is your y-intercept. So we are going to begin with +2, and then we will utilize our slope. Slope is always found here in front of the x term. If you do not have a fraction, you need to make your number look like a fraction. And the way we do that is we always put it over 1. -3 divided by 1 still gives us the value of -3, but it allows us to use our formula for slope, which allows us to rise first and then run. So to get our points on the graph, we remember that we have an x-axis here and a y-axis here. we have to begin with B, our y-intercept. So this time our y-intercept is positive 2. And from that beginning point, we're going to show how our rise this time is negative 3. So we have to go down 3. And our run is positive 1. Rise, negative 3. Run of positive 1. Again, you run out of room, so you can repeat the pattern, but in the opposite direction. So up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1 gives us another point. Connect it, arrows at both ends, and label. Again, this method allows you to quickly graph a line, knowing that you have a y-intercept to begin, and you have a slope to get yourself to move to the next point. Begin with B, move with M is a very good way to remember. So, your guided practice. We'll do one of these together, and then I'll have you pause the video to do another one. This formula is giving us y equals 1/4 x plus 2. Remember, your plus 2 is your B value, your beginning point. And your 1/4 is in front of x, so that means we have a slope of 1/4. When we're ready to do our slope, you will make sure you rise 1 and you run 4. So this line is not going to be very steep at all. Before we can do our moving, we have to make sure we have our beginning point on the y-axis. So if your y-intercept is positive 2, there's your beginning point. And then we're going to utilize our slope so that we can move to the next point. Rise 1, run 4, and again you're going to run out of room very quickly with this one, so repeat your pattern in the opposite direction. Down 1, to the left 4. You want at least 3 points, and you want to make sure they're all lined up using the same movement pattern before you connect and label. Okay, so pause the video. You're going to try this next guided example that has given you the formula y equals 6/5 x plus 1. And once you have it graphed, you'll play the video to see if you were correct. Okay, begin with B, which is a positive 1. There's your beginning point. Move with your slope, which is 6/5, which means you're going to rise 6, and then you're going to run 5. So starting at our beginning point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it jumps off the graph a little bit, but you can estimate where the next box should be. Running out of room, you could continue the pattern in the opposite direction. So come down 6, over 5, come down 6, and over 5. Making sure your points line up. Remember, you're going to connect them with a ruler. You're going to have arrows at both ends, and you're going to label. On the back, you're going to find some more examples. Keep in mind that you will not always have a positive slope to be graphing. For example, this first one, your beginning point, your y-intercept is positive 3, but you'll notice that your slope is negative. All right, when you have a negative slope, you want to put the negative sign with the numerator of your fraction, and this allows, when you set it up to actually do your movement, we know that we're going to rise by going down 1, and then we're going to go over 3. So what it looks like is, starting with your beginning point, your y-intercept of positive 3, we're going to rise down 1, and we're going to run to the right 3. Rise down 1, to the right 3, and then reverse the pattern, go in the opposite direction to get your point. You want to make sure when you're graphing, if your slope is negative, your line ends up going downhill. Remember, slope tube would say nice negative. The ones that we did on the front, you had a positive slope here that was pretty steep. You had a positive slope here that wasn't very steep. And then we had another one that was similar to that. Okay, the only one on the front that has this negative slope is right here. It's going downhill because our slope was negative 3. And we wrote it negative 3 over 1. So again, pause the video. You have some more guided examples to try. The more you do these, the better you get. So pause again the video, take a minute to complete it, and then you can play the video to check your answers. Okay, what you want to verify now is before we tape this into our book, we correctly have our beginning points and we correctly have our slopes taken from the formula. Remember, y equals mx plus b. The m is always in front of x. The b value or the y-intercept, your beginning point, is always at the end. So you can see that this graph begins at the y-intercept at -4 and it has a rise of 1, a run of 5. So it's not very steep. Arrows at both ends. Equation is labeled. In the middle of your paper, you have a beginning value of 5 for this equation, a slope of 2. Remember, you want to put a 1 underneath a whole number so that you can give yourself your rise and your run, so you can do your movement. Here's your y-intercept at +5, and there is showing how you rise 2, run 1. You can reverse the pattern to go the opposite direction, but you can tell you're always showing a rise of 2, a run of 1 between your points. This equation had a negative slope of 6. Make sure you put a 1 under it so you have a rise and you have a run. It's a very steep line. In order to do your movement, you do have to have a beginning point at +3 on the y-axis. So there's your slope of down 6 over 1. You could probably go down 6 more and estimate where that next point would be. I just connected the 2 dots that I was able to fit. And at the bottom, okay, this question can get confusing to students because there is nothing at the end of the equation. All I gave you is y equals 5/3 x. What that means is there was a y-intercept of 0, but mathematically adding 0 doesn't change your equation, so we usually don't show this. If you have a beginning point of 0, though, you can see that the graph does go right through the origin. So starting at that point, we're going to rise 5, and we're going to run 3 to get to our next point, so your graph needs to look like this. And for the last one, we had a beginning point at -2, and then we had a rise of 7 and a run of 2. Again, you're going to run out of room, so you could reverse the pattern in the opposite direction. You can come down 7 over 2, and then again estimate down 7 over 2 where you would be. What you're going to do with your note sheet is you're going to fold it in half with the information that we wrote down first. You're going to crease it, and then when you tape this in, you want to make sure you tape it so it's still open so you can see all your examples here. You can see all your examples here. So in your book, on page 57, there's your title from the table of contents, and here's an example of where I just taped it right here, in the middle, and at the bottom, so 3 small pieces of tape. You're not covering the corner because you want to be able to open this up to see the whole thing. And you want to be able to open it up this way to see the whole thing. And that should stay neatly in your book if you have it creased nicely.